Imagine looking directly at the man you know will betray you, the man who will ultimately seal your fate, and telling your followers, love your enemies.
I mean, yeah, it completely changes how you read the text.
Hmm.
When you realize the person delivering that line knows the clock is, already ticking on his own life.
Right, exactly. So we are diving deep into a producer briefing on Luke chapter 6 today, and that exact moment is the destination we are heading toward.
It's quite a journey to get there, too.
Oh, it really is. And our mission today is to extract the historical context, the rising political tension, and just the incredible human drama embedded in these ancient texts.
Because, this isn't just a collection of peaceful spiritual teachings.
Not at all. Within the first few moments of this narrative, I mean, we are looking at a high-stakes political standoff. We've got a surveillance sting operation.
A literal sting operation.
Yeah, massive economic accusations against the ruling class, and a volatile inner circle that includes both a revolutionary and a tax collector.
The narrative tension in this document is just extraordinary. You are essentially watching the real-time formation of a movement that is right out of the gate on a collision course with the established authorities.
Totally. But before we pull back the curtain on the first-century laws that make this collision inevitable, I want to pose a mystery question for you listening.
Ooh, a mystery question, okay.
Why would the simple act of grabbing a quick snack in a grain field or, healing a man's hand spark an actual legal conspiracy to take someone down?
That is the big question.
Keep that in mind because the environment these people are operating in is far more rigid and dangerous than it appears on the surface.
Absolutely. And we have to start with the grain field incident to really understand those legal mechanics.
Right. Set the scene for us.
So the text describes Jesus and his disciples taking a walk on the Sabbath, and they're passing through these fields of grain.
Just a casual walk.
Right. And the disciples are hungry, so they start stripping heads of grain, casually rubbing them in their hands, and eating them.
Which sounds totally harmless.
It does. But the Pharisees immediately step in and challenge this action, telling them point blank they are breaking the law.
I look at that scene, and to a modern reader, picking a few pieces of grain sounds like the most trivial thing in the world.
Yeah, it really does.
It's like picking a blackberry off a bush while walking down a hiking trail. But the Pharisees aren't just being eccentric or overly fussy here, are they?
No, not at all. They are enforcing a highly specific legal framework.
Okay, let's unpack this, because what exactly is this framework?
Well, the framework they are enforcing has deep roots in the texts of Exodus and Deuteronomy.
Okay.
And over time, it was governed by this extensive oral tradition, which, would later be codified in the Mishnah.
Right.
This wasn't just a general suggestion to take a day of rest. It was a rigorous system where dozens of very specific categories of work were strictly prohibited on the Sabbath.
And picking grain falls under that.
Yes. Harvesting was one of those explicit categories.
Yeah.
So legally speaking, the act of stripping the grain and casually rubbing it in your palm.
Even just rubbing it in your palm.
Yeah, that fell directly within the prohibition against harvesting and threshing.
Wow. So we are talking about essentially a zero-tolerance legal policy.
Exactly. Zero tolerance.
If we put this in modern terms, it's not like a loose guideline from HR. It's like a draconian corporate compliance policy where, accidentally taking a company pen home means you get immediately terminated.
That is a great way to put it, yeah.
There is no spirit of the law versus letter of the law allowance being made here for a quick snack. It is a hard boundary.
And Jesus' response is fascinating. Because instead of apologizing or backing down, he counters this with a historical precedent that is incredibly sharp.
Oh, yeah, he points him to 1 Samuel 21, right, bringing up the story of David.
Exactly. He brings up David on the run and desperate, going to the sanctuary at Nob and eating the consecrated showbread.
And we should probably define what that showbread was, for anyone who doesn't know, just to understand the weight of the argument.
Right, so this was sacred bread, richly placed in the sanctuary, and it was strictly reserved for the priests, nobody else.
So by citing this, Jesus is reminding these legal experts of a foundational story where human desperation and need actively overrode strict ritual law.
Yes, and any literate Jew in that context would have recognized that story and its implications instantly.
But the argument doesn't stop there, right?
Yeah.
Because he pushes the confrontation into dangerous territory with the critical key verse of this encounter.
Oh, Luke 6.5.
Yes. He tells them the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath.
Which is huge, That statement pushes the incident from a legal debate into a direct power challenge.
Right, he isn't just debating scripture anymore.
Exactly. He is claiming personal authority over the most legally protected institution in Jewish life. And he is doing it directly to the faces of the men whose entire societal and professional role is enforcing that exact institution.
So because Jesus publicly challenged their authority over their own laws, I mean, they can't just let him walk away with a theological victory.
No, they are forced to respond.
Right. And the text moves us from the open field to the inside of a synagogue on another Sabbath. But this is not described as a quiet community worship service.
Not at all. The scribes and Pharisees are actively watching Jesus.
Yeah.
It is a surveillance operation.
They know there is a man in the room with a withered hand, and they are waiting to see if Jesus will heal him.
What's fascinating here is the sheer political reality of what is happening in this room.
Right, because it's not just a religious disagreement.
Exactly. Under the governance structure of Judea and Galilee, which operated under Roman oversight, these local religious councils were not just debate clubs or theological societies.
They had actual power.
Yes, they held genuine judicial authority over Jewish communal life. They had the power to excommunicate people, to levy fines,
Wow.
and to refer major cases to higher, sometimes lethal, authorities.
Wait, okay. If they had the judicial authority to ruin him, and they are already furious about the grain field incident, why didn't they just arrest him right there in the synagogue?
Well, they need an undeniable public breach of the law.
Oh, so they need a solid case.
Right, a case they can prosecute without sparking a riot among his followers. Healing a non-life-threatening condition like a withered hand on the Sabbath was considered a violation of the medical prohibitions of the day.
So it's a trap.
Exactly. If he heals that man, he is violating the law in front of hostile witnesses who have the legal jurisdiction to officially bring him down. It is a highly orchestrated, prosecutable trap.
Man, you can almost feel the silence in the room as everyone watches to see what he will do.
Yeah, the tension is it's massive.
And Jesus completely refuses to be managed by this trap. Like, if I were in his shoes and I wanted to help the man without getting arrested, I might, I don't know, pull the guy aside and heal him quietly in a back room after the sun went down.
Right, wait until the Sabbath is over.
Exactly. But Jesus does the exact opposite. He calls the man with the withered hand right into the middle of the room.
He makes it a public spectacle.
He really does. He looks directly at the religious lawyers, poses a confrontational moral question about doing good on the Sabbath, and then heals the hand in full public view.
And the reaction from the authorities matches the audacity of the healing.
Oh, yeah, Luke 6.11.
Right, Luke 6.11 notes that his opponents are filled with rage, and they begin to discuss with one another what they might do to Jesus.
Which is a huge shift.
It's a massive turning point in the narrative. It is the first open conspiracy note we see in Luke's text. The opposition is moved entirely from theological debate to active, collaborative plotting.
Wow. So with an active legal conspiracy now forming against him, the urgency for Jesus to solidify a core team becomes paramount.
He definitely needs a solid structure now.
Right. He needs people who are going to carry this movement forward when the authorities inevitably strike. The text says he withdraws to a mountain for an all-night vigil, spending the entire night alone.
And then at dawn, he descends.
Yeah, he calls his larger group of followers together, formally selecting 12 men and naming them apostles.
And this list of names, I mean, when we examine the names on this list, the social voltage of the group cannot be overstated.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yes. He chooses a man who is a former tax collector.
Okay, hold on to that thought.
And places him in the same inner circle as someone named Simon, who is designated in the text as a zealot.
I want to pause on this dynamic because I think it's easy for a modern reader to gloss over those titles without realizing the sheer animosity they represent.
Oh, absolutely.
This isn't just assembling people from different political parties. This is like forcing an underground revolutionary to share a bunker with an IRS agent who is actively collecting funds for a hostile foreign government.
That analogy captures the tension perfectly. A tax collector was inherently tied to the Roman system.
They were locals, right?
Yes, locals who collected revenue for the occupying empire. And they often enriched themselves in the process through extortion. They were widely despised and viewed as traitors to their own people.
And then on the other side, you have the zealot.
Right. Now, some scholars believe the zealot designation signals a very specific revolutionary anti-Roman nationalism.
So literally the opposite of a Roman tax collector.
Exactly. But even if zealot simply meant someone fiercely devoted to the law and Jewish purity, the friction between a collaborator and a purist would be monumental.
It's an explosive casting choice, and just as we're trying to wrap our heads around how this volatile inner circle is going to function without destroying itself, Luke drops the final name onto the list.
Yeah, he slips it in so quietly.
He really does. He slips it into the text without any fanfare or dramatic buildup. He simply writes Judas Iscariot, who also became a traitor,
It is such a deliberate narrative choice to frame the rest of the chapter.
because everyone already knows what happens.
Right. Luke knows what Judas did, and the first century audience listening to this being read aloud already knew what Judas did. By naming the traitor right from the jump, the text casts a shadow over everything that follows.
The powder keg is officially assembled. So, with this highly volatile inner circle now standing behind him, Jesus turns his attention to a massive crowd. This brings us to the setup for what is known as the Sermon on the Plain.
A very famous moment in the text.
Yes, and the message he delivers here completely upends the social structures of everyone standing on that field. But before we get to the message, we need to look at who is actually in this crowd.
Yeah, the text specifically maps out the geography of the audience here.
Okay, where are they from?
So they're drawn from Judea and Jerusalem, which we would expect, but also from the coastal cities of Tyre and Sidon.
And where are those?
Tyre and Sidon were Phoenician coastal cities, major Mediterranean trading hubs located in what is now modern-day Lebanon.
Okay, so a bit further out.
Crucially, they had largely Gentile populations. The presence of people from these cities suggests the movement is already crossing significant ethnic and geographic boundaries.
Wow. And if you're listening to this and wondering why the geography of the crowd matters, it sets the stage for the absolute economic bombshell Jesus is about to drop.
It really is a bombshell.
He delivers a series of famous blessings and woes. He pronounces blessings for the poor, the hungry, the grieving, and the excluded.
Beautiful, comforting words.
But right on the heels of that comfort, he delivers severe woes aimed directly at the wealthy, the satisfied, and the celebrated.
The contrast is jarring.
The language is razor sharp. He says in Luke 6.24, "But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, to understand why this language is so dangerous, we have to look at the mechanics of the Roman provincial economy they were living under.
Okay, how did that work?
This was a system built on heavy Roman taxation, mandatory priestly tithes, crippling local debt, and relentless resource extraction. It relied heavily on a patron-client dependency system.
Let's break down how that patron-client system actually operated day to day, because, it wasn't just an abstract economic theory for these people.
No, it was their everyday reality.
How did this system practically strip smallholders of their land and their livelihood?
The mechanism was brutal in its simplicity. Taxes often had to be paid in Roman coin.
Okay.
But subsistence farmers in Galilee primarily produced agricultural goods, like grain. They didn't just have Roman coins lying around.
So how did they pay?
To get the necessary coin to pay their taxes, these farmers were forced to take out predatory loans from the wealthy elite.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And when a bad harvest hit, which was inevitable in an agrarian society, the farmers would default on those loans.
Let me guess. The elite took their land.
Exactly. The wealthy elite would seize their ancestral land as payment. The farmer would be reduced to a tenant or a day laborer on the very land their family used to own. That is the engine of the patron-client system.
It was an economy meticulously designed to keep the people at the top very comfortable and the people at the bottom in a state of constant desperation.
Perfectly designed for that, yeah.
So when Jesus stands on that plain and explicitly blesses the poor while pronouncing doom on the rich, he isn't speaking in spiritually neutral metaphors.
No, not at all.
It is a direct, targeted economic accusation. It mapped perfectly onto the visible social hierarchies of the first century.
Exactly. Everyone standing in that crowd knew exactly which category they occupied, whether they were a wealthy merchant from Sidon or a dispossessed farmer from Galilee.
The marginalized people in the crowd are hearing their reality validated.
They are being told that the kingdom belongs to them, while the structures that oppress them are being publicly condemned.
But just as the crowd is with him, just as he has championed the poor and the marginalized, Jesus executes a massive rhetorical pivot.
Yeah, he turns it right around.
He aims a sharp, almost aggressive warning directly at his own followers. I'm looking at this structural shift, and I have to ask, so what does this all mean? Why undercut the momentum?
It's a great question.
He just won the crowd over. Why turn around and aggressively target his own disciples with the question in Luke 6.46? Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do the things which I say?
By turning the focus inward, he collapses the comfort the blessings just offered to his followers.
He's not letting them off the hook.
Exactly. He is refusing to let them be passive consumers of his teaching. He closes the sermon with a parable about two builders, serving as a severe warning.
Right, the house built on the rock versus the sand.
Yes. Hearing his words without actually acting on them is like a house built without a foundation. When the floodwaters rise, the destruction of that house is absolute.
Wow.
For Jesus, knowledge and spiritual comfort are entirely worthless unless they are applied through real-world actions. It is a structural collapse waiting to happen if they merely listen without doing.
Which brings us all the way back to the hook we started with. Jesus is demanding radical action from his followers.
Yes, the hardest kind of action.
He isn't just asking them to be nice. He is demanding that they do the hardest possible thing, love their enemies, do good to those who hate them.
And the context makes it so intense.
Because he is delivering this sharp, demanding message while his newly appointed inner circle is standing right there listening to every word.
Right. Judas Iscariot is standing right there in the front row.
The devastating irony of this scene is palpable when you give it room to breathe. Jesus is looking at a crowd, looking at his inner circle, and demanding unconditional love for enemies, fully knowing that the man who will ultimately orchestrate his death is standing beside him.
It elevates the command from a nice spiritual platitude into a terrifying lived reality.
He is actively practicing what he is preaching in the most extreme circumstance imaginable.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to turn this over to you, listening right now. What stands out to you in all of this? Was it the intense, high-stakes political surveillance operation orchestrated in the synagogue?
That was intense.
Or maybe the absolute powder keg of an inner circle Jesus put together, forcing a tax collector and a zealot to work side by side?
Also,
Drop a comment below with your thoughts on today's historical drama. I really want to know what part of this ancient text grabbed your attention the most. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss our future deep dives. Also, be sure to check the description below for exclusive links to our sources and further reading so you can explore these texts and historical mechanisms yourself.
and as you explore those sources, consider this final thought. Think about the profound weight of demanding radical action and unconditional love from your followers, all while fully knowing that the structures of your own meticulously chosen inner circle already contain the seeds of your betrayal.
It leaves us in a highly precarious place. With the religious authorities' rage boiling over into an open, active conspiracy, a highly volatile inner circle of 12 officially named, and a radical economic challenge thrown down to a massive crowd, what happens next as this explosive movement takes its message forward into Judea? We'll see how these plots and tensions play out in the next chapter.